y'all, I'm Kitty, and this podcast is mine, Missing, Murdered, Unidentified in New England. I cover cases from the New England states of Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Vermont. Each episode takes place over the years of January 1st, 2010 to December 31st, 2020, and based on sources, some episodes will be long and others will be short, as these cases don't generally have much information available. Today will be a longer episode as we have evidence, court proceedings, and other documentation publicly available. All of the research, scripting, opinions, and mistakes herein are my own, and I will offer updates and corrections as needed. I do not trigger warn for wounds, as they are a necessary part of the narrative. I will trigger warn for other things, though, and today's case is very heavily tied into other things, such as sexual assault, torture, and violence. There is also mention of substance abuse. Please call 1-800-662-4357 for the SAMHSA Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration hotline. This episode is not for everyone, and that is okay. Please be gentle to yourself. Now with that, please listen in as I tell you about Stewart Rudolph Weldon. This episode is different from what I normally cover. Today focuses on one man and his nefarious crimes. Serial killer Stewart Weldon, cousin of LaShawn Weldon, featured in episode 2, February 2010. To recap LaShawn's case, it seems like just yesterday we were hanging at your grandma's house in Robinson Gardens, dressing up and playing like we were famous jazz singers and things. I will never forget your friendship. It was real, unconditional, and true. I will miss you. LaShawn Dolores Weldon was likely born on July 2nd, 1969, and was a lifelong Springfield, Massachusetts resident. LaShawn attended the Springfield Technical High School, was employed as a nurse's aide, as well as a personal care attendant. LaShawn had a large family with 2 siblings named Malika and Tony, a mom named Teresa Jenkins, a father named Roger Rush, and a stepdad named Anthony Jenkins. LaShawn has 4 children: Cherie Fortes, William Williams III, Jaquetta Jackson, and Jesse Jackson. LaShawn also has at least one grandchild by the name of William Weldon Fortes. A. LaShawn D. Weldon was arrested for sex work in 2007, 2008, and 2009, all at the ages our LaShawn would have been, making me think that LaShawn did dabble in sex work, which is totally okay. It should be legalized. Someone murdered LaShawn at the age of 40 by unnamed means in her 159 Tyler Street, Springfield, Mass. Apartment on February 19, 2010. LaShawn's memorial was held at Harrell Funeral Home. It is unsure if LaShawn's cousin Stewart Weldon is a suspect. Please call 1-413-787-6355 with any information. I have reached out to Anthony Gallooni, mentioned later in this episode, to ask about a potential connection, and am still waiting on a reply as of the release of this episode. I have only heard mention of the connection between the murder of LaShawn Weldon and her serial killer cousin, Stewart Weldon, via one of the last conferences held at the press conference for his arraignment, and a brief mention in the Crime and Justice podcast with Ashley Bainfield, but neither source confirmed a connection. Before I begin to cover the vile, evil degenerate that Stewart Weldon is, I'm going to cover his victims, the women he mercilessly murdered for the benefit of his own sick fantasies. America Lyden, Ernestine Ryans, and Kayla Escalante are the real focus of this episode. Or at least they should be, but there is not much publicly available about them. America Lyden. My sister had that beautiful smile. The sunshine, said Wanda Estrada. American Jordan Canales Lyden was born in Holyoke, and was the doting mother to two daughters who were staying with their father's family. America was sweet, generous, and upbeat, and well-liked. America had a passion for reading, especially urban fiction and mystery, as well as listening to many different sounds of music. America was 4'11" and 95 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. America's nails were always beautifully done in red, pink, or purple, colors that matched her vibrant and good-natured personality. America also had a turbulent history. My sister was a good human being. She was just going through her struggles. America was beloved, had a heart of gold, and always wore her heart on her sleeve. America had lunch plans with her sister Marie to catch up on life, and then called sounding slightly frantic to reschedule at the last minute. Around that same time, America was messaging her other sister Wanda, who thinks that the final messages shared between her and America's phone number were not in fact coming from America, but from someone different. And then, America was never heard from again. America was originally reported missing on December 1st, 2017, by her sister Marie Canales. On December 26th, 2017, police issued a missing persons Facebook post. Friends and family checked around, including hospitals, women's shelters, jails, and rehab facilities, for the missing America, but to no avail. America also had ties to Bristol, Connecticut, but it is unknown if anyone had searched for her down there. An undisclosed associate of America's was interviewed at Mill Street Jail. The last time they saw America was in a jail in Ludlow, Mass., and they thought that she just didn't return to the person she was staying with after she was released. The person then saw the missing persons poster and realized something else must have happened to America. Detectives were given more names to check out, but to no avail. The place where America was staying was a stone's throw away from where Ernestine was staying on Worthington Street. Detectives looked through the drug dens of Springfield for America, including Union, School, and High Streets, which were also the streets that Stewart would troll for victims. These streets have been referred to as, quote, street feuds, sex works, and open-air drug sales. When Constance, Stewart's mom, called police about the stench and flies and the media became involved, Marie was worried America was going to be found among the bodies. When Marie brought America's name to the attention of officers and said that she may be a potential victim, detectives were responsive, interested, and attentive, and kept Marie posted the best they could. It was on June 4th, 2018, that America Jordan Canales Lyden was confirmed to be deceased at Stewart Weldon's mom's home. It's not like a drive-by shooting or something where you know what happened. This is a type of case where we wonder about her last moments, said Marie's fiancé Gio Castellano. America's service was held at Haffey Funeral Home in Springfield, Mass., and America was buried next to her sister Felicia Canales Gomez, who passed away in 2010 from a drug overdose. In lieu of flowers, money was donated to the educational expenses of America's children, Tajay Rivera and Niaja Baez. America was only 34. Ernestine Ryans. We had the best mom to be born to. And we all make mistakes. Ernestine Ryans was described as popular, mischievous, and a proud, loving mother and protector. Ernestine recently moved from Hartford, Connecticut to Springfield, Mass., and had two daughters, Kiara Starks, 13, and Miracle Thomas, 25. According to Miracle, Ernestine, quote, poured so much into me to make sure I succeeded. And according to Kiara, Ernestine dreamed of moving to Pennsylvania to be a full-time grandmother. She had her demons, but she was a good person, a kind person, and a lot of people had nothing but positive things to say about her. Ernestine was last seen walking away on Worthington Street in Springfield, Mass. On March 8th, 2018, and was reported missing March 18th, 2018. Ernestine had a history of walking away without leaving a word before, but not for that long, which prompted the reporting. I am uncertain if the search included the Hartford, Connecticut area. Friends and family checked around, including hospitals and jails, for the missing Ernestine, but to no avail. Ernestine was confirmed deceased at Stewart's mom's home on June 4th, 2018. Ernestine's memorial was held on June 15th, 2018 in Bloomfield, Connecticut. Ernestine was only 47. Kayla Escalante. She was a big ball of smiles. Despite all she had going on, she was always in a good vibe. Your smile was so contagious, it would light up the whole mall. Even though I was in slow classes, you would still talk to me about our favorite bands. I will never forget how nice you were to me. Kay was a beautiful person on the inside as well as the outside. She would have given you the shirt off her back. And according to Kayla's former attorney turned friend, Kayla was sweet, loving, funny, and upbeat. These are just a few memories of friends, relatives, and acquaintances left behind by Kayla Jean Escalante. Kayla was born to parents Michael Escalante and Lori A. Higgins Escalante on May 30th, 1991. Kayla had 2 brothers and 1 sister, named Robert, Jason, and Crystal. Kayla had brown eyes and platinum blonde hair, with a gorgeous smile and abundant love. Loved by many, Kayla was influential and always put others first and was selfless. In her teenage years, Kayla was described as a mall rat in the Eastfield Mall in Springfield, Mass., and on occasion, Kayla attended Shaker Bowl in East Longmeadow, Mass. Kayla attended Ludlow and Cathedral High Schools and earned her GED from the OWL program in Springfield. Kayla was a great softball player in high school and was present on social media, MySpace, and Facebook. In 2015, Kayla gave birth and also promoted an anti-drug abuse event. Kayla was an attentive and loving mommy to her kiddo, who will be 8 this year. Kayla worked at a pizza shop at one point and was reported as having saved someone's consciousness from destruction and anger. Kayla also took part in the search for missing teen Brianna Cuoco in 2016. Brianna was found deceased in a lake. Kayla was also an active member in the Nemesis Car Club and loved music and going to shows of all sorts. This ties into a story I found about Kayla, one that shows her selfless side and her struggling side by side. This is a story from a man named Brian Burlingham. 2 years ago, I was fired from my security job at the methadone clinic. I hung out with a patient by bringing her to a metal show since she liked metal. My boss found out, and so I was fired. I stayed friends with her, and she eventually brought me back to church. However, it was hard to hang out with her, as she was struggling with her drug addiction. We would fight because every time we hung out, she always needed money for pot, or else she would tell me she would have to do other things to get other stuff. Emotionally, it hurt. I just wanted a normal friendship, and I just wanted to help her get better. Around a day or two after my birthday, she called me. Told me how she was arrested for possession or whatever, and needed bail money. I decided not to help, and that she had to learn the hard way. Brought her to court appearances, but I walked away. I decided that I couldn't be friends with her anymore, nor could I save her. Her actions could have led me getting into trouble, and I had to make a decision that I didn't want, and that was letting her go. Today, after not hearing from her since those court dates I brought her to 2 years ago, I found out she was one of the victims at Page Boulevard. It hurts so much. I feared for her safety. I didn't want her getting involved in bad things. I didn't think it would end this way. Kayla Escalante was only 27 and leaves behind a daughter. This hurts. Kayla struggled with her sobriety, though at a point in 2014, Kayla had a period of sobriety where she proudly claimed, "Fuck yeah, feels amazing," to being sober for 90 days. This is a good point in Kayla's timeline, because another time, Kayla lamented being fucked up all the time. I am unsure if drug abuse was the reason for, but at one point, Kayla's mom took out a restraining order on her that was good through December 2018, months after Kayla was discovered deceased. And Kayla didn't have much contact with her father in the years leading up to her murder due to work hours and life conflicts. Kayla Escalante was the third victim found at Stewart's mom's property and declared deceased as of 5/30/2018, the day of her 27th birthday. Kayla had over 400 Facebook friends who she kept in touch with frequently, but not a single person reported Kayla missing. A GoFundMe was initiated in Kayla's honor, and over $8,000 was raised to help with the burial arrangements, and education costs were derived from those gifts. Our car wash was also held in Kayla's honor to assist with funeral expenses. Kayla's memorial was held at Rattle Funeral Home in Indian Orchard, Mass., and Kayla is interred at St. Aloysius Cemetery, also in Indian Orchard. Kayla's family chose to mourn in private, while America and Ernestine's families engaged with the media. Kayla was only 27. Stewart Weldon. Stewart Weldon is the son of Constance White and Stewie Weldon. Born on June 24, 1977, in Jamaica Plains, New York. In his early childhood, Stewart moved to Montclair, New Jersey, where he stayed pretty much until his father's passing in 1996, when Stewart was 18, at which time people say that Constance really began to spoil Stewart. Stewart then moved to Westfield, Mass. Apartment complex where his aunt also lived. Somewhere in 2016, Stewart moved in with his mom at the mint green 2-bedroom bungalow at 1333 Page Boulevard, Springfield, Mass. Stewart Weldon reportedly has bipolar disorder, dyslexia, ADHD, and only made it through the first grade education-wise. Stewart never held down a job, but did possess an absurd amount of criminal charges, spanning back to when he was just barely an adult. There are differing opinions of Stewart depending on who's being asked. Some described Stewart as a ladies' man and kind-hearted when he was himself. Stewart was also said to have a reckless temper, who targeted young women who seemed to be sick or struggling. Stewart has a scar on his back from a gunshot wound. Stewart also has several tattoos on his arms and chest, including one of a rose with Cynthia in it. Stewart Weldon's criminal history. Y'all, Stewart Weldon has an extensive criminal background, and I'm going to take the time and read them out for the sake of the story, and for y'all to understand why this case makes me so angry. There were ample times for this monster to get jailed, and yet the system continually pushed him through without regard to recidivism or re-education. And there were so many warrants. Just so many. For crimes that could have gotten people killed. For real, why was he still out and about in public? We begin with 19-year-old Stewart Weldon in 1997. 19-year-old Stewart's sexual assault exploits began after picking up 3 girls from Lackawanna Plaza in Montclair, New Jersey, near where he was living in 1997. After the party they attended together, Stewart, his friend Dwight Pottinger, took the 3 girls home, and only 2 made it home unscathed. The men took the 3rd girl for a ride where Dwight and Weldon sexually assaulted and threatened the young girl with a gun. Dwight Pottinger was charged with making terroristic threats, aggravated sexual assault, and kidnapping. Stewart was also charged with sexual assault. Also in 1997, spanning from a different event, Stewart was charged with the possession of a weapon in East Orange, New Jersey, as well as a kidnapping charge. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 3 years probation. Starting on February 12, 2002, Stewart was charged with resisting arrest, disorderly person, operating after license or right to operate was suspended. Followed by June 8, 2002, resisting arrest and being a disorderly person. Followed by April 15, 2003, 4 counts of a default warrant. Followed by June 12, 2003, resisting arrest, being a disorderly person, giving a false name or social security number to a police officer, and again, 4 default warrants. Followed by November 27, 2003, breach of the peace, while armed, carrying a dangerous weapon. Then there was a couple of years where we don't hear anything, and I'm wondering why there is a gap in the timeline. Did he get clean for a couple of years? Was everything great for a couple of years? Was he in jail? Who knows? Followed by January 24th, 2008. Stewart was charged with assault and battery on a police officer, disorderly conduct, resisting arrest, operation of a motor vehicle with a license suspended or revoked, unregistered motor vehicle, and uninsured motor vehicle. Then there are a couple of gaps here. I'm wondering, again, where he was, what he was up to. Followed by July 22nd, 2010. Breaking and entering into a building. Nighttime for a felony. Failure to stop for police. Reckless operation of a motor vehicle. Failure to stop or yield. 4 counts of that. Assault with a dangerous weapon. Motor vehicle lights violation. Resisting arrest. Assault and battery on a police officer. 2 counts. And in this instance, Stewart threatened to kill someone and punched an officer. Stewart had tried to break into either a liquor store or a grocery store based on the source. Followed by October 10th, 2012. Unarmed robbery, assault and battery on a police officer, resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, threat to commit a crime, 2 counts. He received 18 months for this. Well, back at it again with his crimes is April 12th, 2015. We've got an arrest warrant. Followed by April 15th, 2015, we've got a charge for assault with a dangerous weapon, assault and battery on a police officer, 2 counts of that, resisting arrest. This time, at the age of 38, Stewart was arrested for threatening to shoot up a bar, and once apprehended, he punched the bar's security guard. Stewart was charged with a default warrant on a couple of other occasions. And then on May 6, 2016, Stewart was driving while intoxicated and told the officer who pulled him over that he was driving with a suspended license and driving a car with expired inspection sticker, speeding, and he had an open container violation. We're almost done here, folks, I promise. But you're seeing why I'm just so infuriated that this man was still out and about. On September 4th, 2017, Stewart led officers on a pursuit that had to be called off when it hit 90 miles per hour on residential roads. Eventually, Stewart was arraigned for numerous motor vehicle violations on top of other crimes. October 14th, 2017. This is one of those instances that I think that Stewart should have gotten put away for a good amount of time, yet he didn't. Why? On October 14th, 2017, at the age of 40, Stewart attacked a woman in the middle of the street around 9:30 p.m. and fled in a car. Stewart led a chase through Forest Park and South End neighborhoods before crashing into a curb on Layford Terrace. Stewart drove directly at the police cruiser, causing them to swerve to avoid a collision. Eventually, Stewart's vehicle was stopped. At this point, a struggle ensued where 9 officers, quote, used fists, stun guns, and batons as they attempted to subdue Weldon, who allegedly reached for a knife in his waistband and bit Officer Wadlegger in the thigh during the struggle. Officers then pulled a second knife, described as a small folding blade, from Weldon's clenched hand. Care to guess how much Stewart's bail was set at? $2,500. Which I can't even begin to fathom. But then, on top of it, his bail got reduced to $1,000, which his mother, Constance, paid. And Stewart was released. Sometime in the end of 2017, Stewart was in jail and pleaded out to visit his girlfriend for the birth of their daughter. This young daughter added to the children Stewart had, as he had a son living in New Jersey with his former girlfriend. Around this point, Stewart cut off his ankle monitor. In February 2018, Stewart was supposed to be wearing an ankle monitor, as per the court's ruling over previous charges, and he initially complied. Eventually, he would cut off this ankle monitor, and when attempting to check in on the suspects, authorities found he was gone. Despite him still living on page, authorities were always one step behind. They checked a number of times, but Stewart remained elusive. And finally, on May 27, 2018, Stewart was charged with kidnapping with a serious bodily injury, armed threat to commit a crime, resisting arrest, failure to stop for police, operation of a motor vehicle with a suspended license, reckless operation of a motor vehicle, carrying a dangerous weapon with an active warrant. This incident stemmed from a busted taillight. The Springfield Police Department thought Stewart was wanted for the commission of a crime, a different crime than anything he was associated with. They thought he was a totally different person. So instead of letting the taillight go, they attempted to pull Stewart over in the Six Corners neighborhood. When the officer exited the car to go speak to Stewart, Stewart took off. I should remind you that there were at least 3 active warrants out for Stewart's arrest at the time, which would have been okay for them to just pull him over for that, but the fact that they pulled him over because they thought he was someone else just also blows my mind at how coincidental this whole case truly is. At the end of the chase, which concluded when Stewart smashed into the police cruiser with his vehicle on Wilbraham Street, which is where Felix Laurent of November 2012's episode was discovered stabbed to death, Stewart screamed, "There's a body in the trunk!" But there was no body discovered in the trunk. Police did discover 2 knives on Stewart and a badly injured woman in either the backseat or passenger side of the black Altima that Stewart drove during his exploits. The 25-year-old woman was described in media sources as Stewart's sex slave. The unidentified woman said that, quote, "He's gonna kill me," which might have been the case, as Stewart beat her with a hammer and did not let her seek medical attention. Police saw scabbed over wounds and bruises. This young woman, the father of one of Stewart's children, was, quote, "gonna get herself killed out there," according to the father of one of the young woman's other children. And without police intervention, this young woman may have died. Stewart held captive, raped, and beat this young woman again, the mother to one of his children, with a chair, a copper pipe, a screwdriver, a level, and a hammer. Reportedly, Stewart, quote, "beat her with a hammer when he got angry." The young woman told police, "I never thought I would get away." Her injuries were grotesque and violent, including a fractured jaw, stab wounds to the abdomen, marks from being struck with a blunt object, a serious leg infection, and depending on the source, a broken arm. Around this time, Stewart's young daughter was taken by the Department of Children and Families. Stewart's attorney, Brian Murphy, said that they were looking forward to defending himself against these horrible allegations in the court of law. While Stewart was in jail for the May 28th charges, another woman came forward telling police of her escape from death at the hands of Stewart Weldon. Stewart was charged with kidnapping and assault for that February attack. By May 29th, 2018, Stewart pleaded not guilty. During arraignment, Stewart appeared to be laughing in the defendant's dock. And on May 30th, 2018, a 5-day search of Stewart Weldon's mom's property began with a phone call. Investigation. Constance White, Stewart's mother, called police on May 30th, 2018, regarding the putrid stench and swath of flies on her property. Neighbors said that there was something off about the greenhouse at 1333 Page Boulevard, and the people who lived nearby said that those neighbors kept to themselves, and that Stewart was antisocial, which was strange in the tight-knit community. Neighbors also reported a weird smell for about 1 week prior to the discovery. It was a very noticeable and pungent odor that could be detected from the front, a miserable stench emanating from the home. 2 uniformed police officers began searching the house after they were hit by the smell of rotting flesh when they entered, and found blood seeping out of the basement bathroom. The odor was that of Kayla's remains. According to Anthony Gallooni, the Hampton DA, Stewart Weldon, who was arrested on May 27 by the Springfield Police Department, does, we believe, live at this address, Gallooni exclaimed. That is the extent of the connections we are willing to say at this point. All hands on deck for the very complicated investigation. Attorney Gallooni also expressed that the deaths were suspicious at the very least. This was before the medical examiner ruled these murders by homicidal violence. Stewart Weldon preyed on a particular type of person, on those who, quote, had almost nothing, who were utterly just surviving. Investigators used ground-penetrating radar to locate the victims. There were several dug-up spots according to news sources. When America was discovered, she was mostly skeletonized. She was discovered in a hole in the shed. America's arms and ankles were tied behind her back with electrical cords. America was wrapped in a fleece blanket with a long stretch of computer cord wrapped around her. Ernestine was discovered wrapped in a yellow tarp on the floor of the detached garage. Kayla's partially clothed body was found with packing tape over the mouth. Her wrists and ankles had been bound. Kayla's remains were found in the basement bathroom. The medical examiner concluded that Kayla had been likely strangled to death. The three women shared the same signatures: plied with drugs, held captive, sexually assaulted, with limbs bound by common cords and cables. There were clear signs of sexual assault on 2 sets of remains. Evidence gathered at the home of Constance included rosary beads, numerous pieces of clothing, and turkey bones were recovered from the yard. Other evidence included bindings from hands and feet and ankles and face of one of the victims and additional bindings. 60 pieces of evidence came from the basement, 18 from the cedar closet, 16 from a bathroom. The first floor yielded 57 pieces of evidence, and Stewart's car produced 10 pieces of evidence. Hannah Weldon, Stewart Weldon's aunt, said, quote, "When I saw what happened to that girl, I said that boy is sick. He really is. At least he gave her some water to stay hydrated. Something had to snap for him to turn like that. I know his father is turning over 50,000 times in that grave. He would never have approved what he was doing." Hannah, the aunt, also said, quote, "I think it's a damn shame that he handcuffed her, kidnapped her, and beat her with a hammer. It really hurts that somebody could do something like that. If they hadn't stopped him with that broken taillight, they would have never have known that she was in the car." I don't know what to think about Aunt Hannah. "My sister lives across the street from this gentleman," said Counselor Adam Gomez. "That's the scary part in my life, realizing that this could be your next door neighbor. That's how it hit home for me." America's niece Diamond drove past 1333 Page Boulevard every day without knowing her aunt was in there. Knowing her aunt was just mere feet inside that property is heart-wrenching and infuriating. Not many people outside of Stewart's family were shocked at the crimes he committed. Another person said Stewart's family enabled Stewart and his horrific behavior. Dwight Pottinger, yes, the same Dwight from when Stewart was raping young girls at 19, said that, quote, "We were young, drinking and smoking." Y'all, not an excuse. A neighbor recounts how Stewart took an inappropriate interest in his 21-year-old daughter and followed her home from her job at the local Dunkin' Donuts that Stewart had gone to every day. The ones that got away. Many non-murder charges came from 5 living survivors of Stewart's abuse who all recount roughly the same scenario. They were picked up by Stewart from drug-ridden neighborhoods, going back to the nice house on Page Boulevard, and living through abuse and torture at the hands of Stewart Weldon. There are 11 victims definitely attributed to Stewart, though I think there is one more that could be his as well. Out of the 11, 8 are alive, and their willingness and courageousness to testify led to the plea deal due to overwhelming evidence. America, Ernestine, and Kayla's vicious murders brought these women forward in a measure of solidarity. After news broke, a previous girlfriend and mother to Stewart's son told how she, quote, "took her son and ran," alleging Stewart attempted to kill her and their child. In June of 2017, Stewart raped someone and stole their phone. Another victim that came forward said that Stewart held a gun, raped, strangled, and robbed someone. The genders of the victims have not been released. In February 2018, Stewart gave a ride to a woman to his home when he tried to drag her into his house after she fought off his advances. Another woman intervened on her behalf to allow the first woman to escape. In July 2018, authorities acknowledged that Stewart had been linked to sexual assaults in 2009 and 2017, but never faced charges. Quote, "The 2009 rape allegation was made by a transient Boston woman who reported it to Springfield police but then disappeared. they have been unable to locate her since. The second kidnapping and rape allegation came in May 2017 when a woman from Springfield brought the allegations to a Chicopee, Massachusetts police department after a man in a black car took her to a green house in a nice neighborhood. There, he duct taped her mouth, tied her up, beat and raped her in the basement while an adult woman and a child were upstairs. He took her home the next day. The Chicopee Police Department determined the crime took place in Springfield and told the already traumatized and scared woman to take her case to the Springfield Police Department. The Chicopee Police Department offered no assistance or heads up to the sister department per outdated and detrimental protocol. The woman did not follow up, and honestly, I don't blame her. She was victimized and then dismissed. It is shameful how she was treated. And this is how many victims are treated. Things need to change. Quote, "This case is closed due to it happening in Springfield." Per Chicopee PD. CODIS came up with a match to the rape case from 2009 and matched it to Stewart Weldon for the 2017 rape. This information was shared with, but not utilized by the Springfield Police Department because they had no open criminal complaints on him at the time. Quote, "To blame us for the actions of an individual who is going to do what he is going to do is not fair," according to spokesperson Wilk. Actually, spokesperson Wilk, it's holding the detective and agency accountable and culpable for not intervening when you had multiple chances to. Shame on the Chicopee Police Department and shame on the Springfield Police Department. Even more shameful is the defense that the spokesperson for the Chicopee Police Department had. They said that the officer in charge, quote, "went above and beyond," quote, "because the police department rarely refers cases to other jurisdictions." Again, the police dropped the ball here. If anyone had really paid attention to either of these women sooner, the 3 murder victims might be alive, and at least some of the other 8 women raped and assaulted could have been spared the brutality at the hands of Stewart Weldon. One survivor said Weldon hit her with a 2x4 with a nail in it. Another survivor said Weldon dragged her by the hair and locked her in a room for 4 hours as she pleaded to leave. Another survivor was assaulted and brought back at another point for a quote-unquote apology. This apology included Stewart punching the woman in the face, grabbing her hair, and strangling her. Stewart struck the woman over 20 times and only allowed her to leave after she cleaned up blood from the floor. Her own blood from the floor. Pre-trial. There were many pre-trial hearings over the years. The first hearing set bail at $1 million for the May 28th charge, and another $1 million bail was set for the February charges. The trial was supposed to begin in April of 2020, but like the rest of the world, COVID-19 changed those plans. Stewart signed away his right to a speedy trial due to the COVID-19 restrictions on courtrooms. The judge in this case was John Ferreira, who in October 2020 ordered multiple mental health evaluations for Stewart. Stewart passed. He was found okay to stand trial. At the end of tallying up the terror and rampage, there were 52 indictments levied against Stewart, including 3 counts of first-degree murder, counts of strangulation, 9 counts of aggravated rape, 2 counts of rape, 5 counts of aggravated kidnapping, and 4 counts of kidnapping, which were downgraded to 39. "Do you know what you're pleading to?" the judge asked. Murder, right?" Stewart responded. Stewart stood accused of assaulting and beating America, Ernestine, and Kayla with intent to murder them. The medical examiner determined that America, Ernestine, and Kayla were likely killed between August of 2017 and May 30th of 2018. During these hearings, Stewart, 44, admitted he was a serial predator who trolled some of the city's sketchiest neighborhoods for sex workers and women addicted to drugs. He plied his victims with offers to get high, then took them to his former home at 1333 Page Boulevard. They routinely smoked crack cocaine in a basement laundry room before he dragged them into another room to assault them in what was described as, quote, physical and sexual violence that was depraved. Stewart was quoted from a living victim and prior girlfriend that, quote, the best time to jump somebody when they're first high. Stewart Weldon didn't violently abduct these women. He used his charm and charisma, as well as the lure of getting high or for money. These women were vulnerable. Instead of helping, Stewart hurt them. Badly. Max Bennett, top-notch ADA and victims' lawyer, helped gather the witnesses, victims, and survivors of Stewart's. Their testimony played a pivotal role in the prosecution's case. Quote, that was a very laborious task, finding them, making contact with them, and getting them on board to pursue a prosecution against someone who harmed them in a very awful way, remarked Hampton County District Attorney Anthony Gallooni. The survivors who were to testify were only listed by their initials. The torment these women went through was described by the survivors. Prior to death, numbness takes over the limbs, as they could not scream, make noise, or move at all. They believed they would die. They lost control of bodily functions. Only then did Stewart Weldon stop the attack. This was not the case for America, Ernestine, or Kayla, though. It took a full 4 minutes to strangle the women to death, according to the medical examiner. These attacks were personal, slow, and agonizing. Quote, he sought power over his victims. Absolute control. Any hesitation would lead to increased violence. Stewart controlled the environment during the times America, Ernestine, and Kayla were tortured and killed. He had the house totally to himself during those times. The intent was clear. Intricate bindings and knots on America, Ernestine, and Kayla, as well as the survivors who could tell the torment themselves of excessive bindings. At one point, the woman who was found in the car in May, the mother of Stewart's young daughter and former girlfriend, recounts Stewart using a homemade garrote on her, putting a blanket around her neck so as to not kill her the way he did with the others. A garrote, for those who don't know, is made of 2 pieces of wood with a wire in between them, typically a piano wire or some strong wire, and it is placed around the throat and it is used to strangle people. Stewart's murders were sexually motivated. Stewart also knew what he was doing was wrong, or at least knew he would get into trouble if he were caught with desecrated dead bodies. So Stewart would design excuses for the smells that were emanating from the basement and garage and shed of his mom's home, and he researched ways to get rid of animal carcasses, being careful to never research how to get rid of dead bodies. Quote, Mr. Weldon has entered his plea of not guilty and looks forward to addressing these charges in the future in court as well as addressing bail at a later date. Public Defender Matthew Fleischner said. The location of the trial was almost changed due to the rampant mold outbreak at the Roderick, Ireland courthouse and the conditions Stewart was living in. The building was a public safety hazard, according to some. A grand jury indicted Stewart on charges of murder, rape, and strangulation, alleging he attacked 11 victims in a one-man crime spree beginning in spring 2017. The grand jury set out 52 counts against Stewart, saying he killed 3 victims, strangled 7 others, and kidnapped and assaulted an 11th. The charges against Stewart were downgraded from aggravated rape to 24 kidnapping charges, assault with a dangerous weapon, strangulation and larceny, and indecent assault and battery charges. On September 28, 2021, in a surprising change, Stewart changed his plea to guilty. Stewart confessed to killing America, Ernestine, and Kayla after holding them captive before raping and strangling them to death so they wouldn't seek out law enforcement. This change in plea is also different from the original insanity defense the defense team was going to have Stewart attempt. Sentencing. On September 30th, 2021, Stewart agreed to the plea deal for 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, part of which he requested to spend in a Florida prison. I am unsure if this request was granted or not. This deal spared the families from learning the grotesque details of their loved ones' murders. Sentencing was held where the victims and their families were able to read aloud letters to the judge about why to sentence Stewart Weldon to the fullest. The judge, John Ferreira, set out guidelines and expectations in the courtroom, reminding those who would be speaking to, quote, "Keep your voice up. It is important that I hear what you have to say." Tajay Rivera, one of America's daughters, said that the feelings of hurt, sadness, confusion, loneliness, regret, and most of all, anger, are just a few of her daily emotions now. Tajay also said that America had a hard life. She started out in the system at a young age and survived countless acts of abuse, neglect, and assault. Despite everything she lived through, she had always kept pushing towards a better life. And her battle with addiction was near its end when she crossed paths with Stewart. America had just finished rehab in Westfield and was making strides in the right direction. She was looking healthy and was looking for a job. All I have is memories of my mom, and that's heartbreaking. "It wasn't supposed to end like this, Mommy," said America's daughter. Mardele Canales, America's sister's impact statement was read by an attorney and said, quote, "Women around the world continue to be taken by men. We shouldn't have to live in fear." Another of America's sisters, Mary Solis, earlier referred to as Mary Canales, had an attorney read her statement as well, and it included how America's absence has touched numerous lives, and how she had a longing to say "I love you" one more time. Kiara Starks, Ernestine's daughter, said, quote, "For 3 months, I wondered where she was. Was she okay?" Kayla's mom, Lori, read an impact statement. Lori said that Kayla was, quote, "selfless, never shying away from helping people, even to her own detriment. Exciting and curious. She was my best friend." Lori went on to say how she had a dream where Kayla came home free from her demons before Stewart Weldon killed her. Kayla's brother Rob read an impact statement stating that she could love with the power of 1,000 hearts, and that he felt guilt about not being there for his sister during her last few months of life. 3 unidentified victims of Stewart's came to the sentencing to have their stories told and to weigh in on the person who caused them so much pain. One survivor said, quote, I really thought I was going to die on that day. But I asked God for forgiveness and he gave me a second chance." The young woman also said that she had been clean and sober for 2 years as of 2021 when the testimony was given. And though given the opportunity to speak at his sentencing, Stewart Weldon chose to remain silent. Aftermath. A series of 2017 and 2018 rapes ended when Stewart Weldon was arrested. They are thought, but not confirmed, to be Weldon's crimes. Hannah, Stewart's aunt that I mentioned earlier with the questionable comments, said she got a call from her sister in Arizona asking if Stewart was related to the family. And that's when they saw the picture. And it was a spitting image of their deceased brother. But it was their nephew instead. Stewart's cousin on their father's side saw the story and tied the families together. The aunt was reported as saying, quote, "You see him and you don't see him." The majority of that side of the family, they all stayed in jail. There was nothing we could do. One of Stewart's aunts also said that, quote, "Something snapped in him." Strangers who had no tie to the case or to the persons involved tried to cash in on the story of Stewart, claiming they had numerous stories about the serial killer growing up, and they wouldn't talk to anyone who wouldn't pay. As of January 23rd, 2020, when the house was last up for sale to my knowledge, the house was 1,026 square feet of well cared for and cozy, great for the first-time home buyers space. It is a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house going for $137,500. There was a Reddit story where the prospective buyers were looking through the house and the smell seemed off, which they attributed to cats. When the couple were in the basement, they found the soundproofing on the walls and ceiling where they were still in their original spots, saved for the patches cut out. The prospective buyer was unaware of the history and innocently touched the soundproofing in curiosity. And then the agent selling the house realized the house they were in and ushered the prospective buyers out, with the experience being summed up as, quote, "I touched the fucking foam in the torture room." Conclusion. Thank y'all for coming down this dark journey into the world that is Stewart Rudolph Weldon. Stewart is an absolute piece of trash. The young women that he tormented, held captive, berated, degraded, humiliated, raped, and almost killed are victims, survivors, heroes, and most importantly, human. We almost forget that these cases covered in podcasts like mine are about people. We hear the names, we hear the details, we get a glimpse of what it was for them, but we don't humanize the victims as much as we should. I hope this podcast gave the victims a voice and a better glimpse into the wonderful young woman they truly were.